Dave, you were there watching it in all of its glory. What stood out to you?
Well, there was a lot. I think I finally got my finger on what is different about this defense. And what it is, and it's just a word, but urgency. And so, for example, the way you look at the way they attack the line of scrimmage against the run, specifically. I'm being very specific here, but that's the difference. That's what I'm seeing. Somebody said something about, like, they're tackling in pairs or something like that. That didn't really make sense to me. It just means to me that there are more guys there on the spot, when there's a tackle to be made. So just the way that they fly around the field. But it's, another word I would use is attack. And that's what's different about this defense. And the person I thought that played that way the most was Derek Hall. Mm-hmm. Derek Hall just attacked the edge, and then you saw a couple of times where he makes a big hit, and then Trey Brown comes flying up from the outside, and he makes a tackle. And so I've been trying to get my finger on it because everybody's always asking, what's different about this defense? And I don't think there's anything magical about it. I just think that it's inexcusable if you aren't flying to the ball. I remember I did a football 101 where I put Levante David up, and there was a spot that he needed to get to fulfill his responsibility in the defense. And he just turned and flew out there, and it was like a 20-yard run for him to get there, but he knew that was his job, and that's what he had to do. And I think this would be very different if you had the same inside linebackers that you did last year in this defense. There's a lot of learning there. I mean, look, Bobby's got his own style. Same thing with Jordan Brooks. But when you have to turn and run to the C gap and be kind of a crash dummy in that situation, I don't know that would be the style of defense that would fit those guys. But it fits these guys. And Tyrese Knight, is a great example of that. But just, in general, the other thing I saw with the defense, we've talked about coverage in the middle of the field. Guys are going and looking receivers up, and that's a huge difference from last year. There's no more dropping back 10, 12, 15 yards and then looking for somebody, looking at the quarterback, trying to read his eyes. So yeah, there's lots of good stuff that you're seeing from the defense, starting to kind of understand what the difference is. Because I think, look, that was the biggest problem last year. Obviously, offense, and we'll get into all of that. But to me, it was like I could finally put my finger on what is different about this defense, and it's about attacking and getting to your gap and securing it in the best way possible. So, and more, I thought more last year, linebackers kind of looked more like, hey, we're here to make tackles. And they did. They made lots of tackles. But where are the tackles? And, sometimes you have to be really aggressive in taking on a guard or a tackle or a center. So, yeah, that was – and they're very disciplined about that. And if you don't do that, they're going to pull you out of the game. I mean, Mike McDonald is a very direct coach. He knows exactly what he wants done. And that's fairly specific, but I think that's what everybody wants to know. Like, what is the difference between this defense? Why was Mike McDonald's defense so good last year? And how is that going to fit in? And it's kind of a culture thing. You see that guys are already buying into it.
Well, and to me, it's not going to be as obvious as it may be when the regular season starts, because there is, as far as I can see, the illusion of complexity that we heard about on defense. I don't really see that.
No.
But it's preseason. You're not scheming for the Titans. You're not watching film all week and breaking down, all right, how do we stop Malik Willis? How do we stop – it's preseason. So just watching the defense, I'm just watching for the frosting on the cake, if you will. Is everybody moving? Is there all this motion that didn't used to exist? Does it look just on the surface different? And it doesn't. The intent – and maybe the urgency is different, but to me, I don't know that we're going to see anything to the casual fan, to the regular fan, that would be markedly different until it's the regular season. And then they're scheming, then they're game planning. And here's where, now we're not afraid to unveil our tricks, whereas preseason, they're keeping everything very vanilla.
No, absolutely. They absolutely are. And that's what you want to do, because, again, you don't want to scheme some kind of a blitz where a guy gets a sack. You want to see a guy fight for it. you know, and so keep it vanilla and do it that way. But yeah, and I think that's where maybe some of Mike McDonald's genius might start to kick in, is what you talked about, you know, game planning. But, you know, and the other thing is, you know, if there's going to be things, they're going to react to your defense. They're going to look at what you're doing. And so there are certain things they're going to have to, you know, keep in mind. But the one thing that really, and look, to me, it's about the middle of the field and it's about stopping the run. And so there was a play a few years ago. I don't know if you remember the overtime run. There was one play in overtime. Josh Jacobs, 68-yard.
Yeah. I remember that game well because he had a bad calf going in. He was questionable, and he ended up rushing for over 200 yards.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and what happened on that play, there was like a zone blocking scheme, which means two guys are going to double team the guard, and then one's going to go up to the linebacker. Nobody, when that happened, those two, you know, the guard in the center blocking one guy and the tackle on the guard on the other side blocking the other guy, the linebackers were flat-footed, standing at 4 yards, like waiting to read it. If that happened in this defense, you would see those two linebackers attack the front side of that double team. And you know, and that's their number one job. And that's probably the best example I could say where the difference between what I saw the other night, and again, it's just a preseason game. And by the way, we don't have either of our starting linebackers, presumably, you know, that Jerome Baker's going to start in there. You had John Radigan and Tyrese Knight. They're backup players, and they look really good. And I don't know if maybe John Radigan has, or Tyrese Knight as well. I mean, he was a sort of a later round draft choice. You know, this defense is making them look really good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I don't know if, you know, Radigan is just playing faster or whatever, but and the same thing with Tyrese Knight. I like Knight, man. He's made a lot of plays. So, you know, I think the biggest thing is the run game and how you attack the line of scrimmage, and just there's no more catching blocks. It's all about we are going to attack the line of scrimmage.